I've really subscribed to the idea that, and some of the research that suggests that, vacations and time off really matter, especially, for all kinds of work, but for me, for brain work. Like if I work all weekend or I never take a vacation, I think the brain work that I do is worse. Like I'm less creative. A lot of my work is writing. I'm less excited and ready to write. So I do really feel like I need time off to do my job better and more productively.
This is Intentionally Ever After. Join intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek for a series of personal conversations and coaching sessions with various people about how living with intention shows up for them.
Greetings, everyone. Welcome to another episode of Intentionally Ever After. Today, I am very excited to chat with my dear friend, fellow dog walker and neighbor, intellect, Dr. Valerie Earnshaw.
Hello, Joe.
How are you today?
I'm good. How are you doing?
Oh, I'm swell. Thank you. Thank you for asking. Would you kindly provide an introduction so that people listening may know who you are?
Yes. Hello, people listening. I am a social and health psychologist. I study essentially how stigma, things like discrimination, impact people's health. And I do that mostly in the context of HIV and substance use disorders. And I also am an associate professor at the University of Delaware. And I host a podcast also called Sex, Drugs, and Science, where we talk to scientists about their sex and drugs research that they do.
It is pretty cool. I mean, the name alone is intriguing, but I have listened to every single episode. I'm not going to brag here, but
oh, wow. Okay.
Fascinating stuff. Some of it admittedly is over my head, but I've learned a thing or two, but don't test me on anything specifically.
Deal.
Yep.
Deal.
I know that you admitted to having prepared a little bit. What are your initial thoughts or your research thoughts on living intentionally as it relates to the life of Dr. Val Earnshaw?
Well, I feel badly that you have advertised that I prepped, because this is my most underdeveloped answer, which is that.
Awesome. Let's get it out of the way, shall we?
Okay. I think in my life, it shows up as self-awareness, like trying to be aware of myself and what my goals are, and kind of just what I'm doing and feeling. I have also listened to all of the episodes of this podcast. And I notice when other people talk about intentionality, there's often like a future orientation, I think, to it, like kind of a movement. And that's interesting to listen to, because I don't know that when I think of intentionality or being intentional, I don't know that I think so much about like the movement piece as much as I do of self-awareness, kind of like knowing what I'm up to and how I'm feeling and that sort of thing.
So more in the moment awareness, is that what you're referring to?
Yeah, I think so. Yeah. Or even, even in the moment, in the day, in the week, like trying to figure that out. Or even in the past, like what happened, when I did that thing last week, like what was that about? Let's unpack that. So yeah, I think I really zoom in on for me, the part of it that's about just being aware of myself.
Why is that important to you?
That's a good question. In the work, so the thing that comes to mind, it would be more to do with work. And I think that being aware of like what I'm doing and why is important, so that I align my work, like even my day-to-day schedule, with my goals for myself as a scientist, as a professor, as a like whatever hat I'm wearing that day. And if I'm not aware of both my goals and how I'm spending my time, then I think I can very easily get into a situation where there's like a very big misalignment there, especially because in my job world, there are times when it's very unscheduled. I probably have like 6 hours of meetings this week. And then I have 4, the rest to fill. Like, this is my meeting today, the rest I need to fill with progress towards like lots of different goals and different projects that are all at different stages. So if I don't have an awareness of how I'm like aligning my time with what my job is, what my goals are, like what the projects that I'm working on, where those, maybe there is some intentionality, forward thinking, because where those need to go, then I can get into a situation where I'm spending like a disproportionate amount of my time doing things that, maybe I shouldn't be doing or aren't as well aligned with, those types of goals. Does that make sense?
Totally. How do you catch yourself when you have this misalignment?
Oh, okay. So I have a calendar, and this we're getting into a little bit of, can we jump a little bit to like what change has had an exponential payoff question? Okay.
Please present the question and answer if you would.
Awesome. Okay. So one of the things, one habit that I started to do that has had a huge payoff and also sounds like some really basic stuff is weekly planning. So
I love it.
I used to be someone who had like a to-do list for my semester all the time. And I would sit down and I'd have like an hour between meetings and I'd look at this like semester long to-do list and be like, which one of these things should I try to do with this hour, which is bananas. And it also makes you feel like you always have this to-do list and like things are never, ever done. I don't know how I was like successful with that. Like I did fine with it, but it was, it's just more stressful. So I took a professional development course, which I loved. I think I have chatted with you about it on our dog walks. And one of the things that they taught us about was being more intentional about our goal setting and relatedly our planning. So the structure is that you set goals for a full semester, and then you break down like week by week what are the things you should be doing that week, maybe to be progressing towards that goal. And, like towards the end of the semester, the wheels are off the car and I'm usually like not where I thought, but that's usually okay. Like I reset, I plan again, and we like correct it. But at the beginning of each week, I look at, okay, so what did I think my goals for this week were going to be? What have I inherited from last week? And then I plan my week out like to the hour. So my calendar has all of the things that I think I should be doing, or that I'm planning to do. And then it's color coded. So the main buckets of my job as a professor are research, teaching, and service. And for this year and last year, I'm actually doing very little teaching because I have grants. So I'm, more so focused on the research parts. So I assign green to research in part because that's, valued and rewarded in the field. I also love my research. I assign orange to teaching, and then red to service, because service, everyone needs to be doing service in our jobs. That might be like committee work, for example, but it's like the least rewarded. So when I then look at my calendar, I try to make sure that there's more of green, than there is of orange, than there is of red. So if I have a week where there's like a lot of red and not a little green, then I know that like something's going astray this week. And I also try to keep tabs on it. So if my activity in the day doesn't totally line up with what I thought it was going to be, I'll like post hoc change my calendar around so that at the end of the week too, I can see like, was this too red? Was it too orange? Is there not enough orange? Do I need to go check in on my grad students to see how they're doing? So that is how I track whether I am like meeting those goals. And that is also the habit that's had a really big payoff, I think, for me.
That's amazing. May I ask a logistical question?
Yeah, of course.
Do you have a set cadence to when you sit down to reflect upon and build your week forward?
Yeah, that's a great question. So a lot of people do it Monday mornings. I have an accountability buddy who is a plant scientist, and we talk every Friday afternoon, which is why often miss those like dog walks on Fridays because we talk at 5:30. So she usually does hers on Friday nights. What often happens to me is I'll either do it Monday morning, or sometimes on Sunday afternoons, I'll get this like sneaking stress feeling. And like yesterday I had this. So I sat down. It took me like a half hour. I did the weekly planning and I was like, you know what, Earnshaw, you have plenty of time this week to do all of the things, like it all fits. You know, I'm way behind on email right now. I gave myself like a couple hours today just to clear that. So that meant that I didn't have to be doing that yesterday because I was like, no, we have time, set aside for this during the week. Maybe I haven't totally hit my groove yet, but Monday mornings, but if I'm feeling a little stressed, then Sundays, and I think that's fine. I mean, it still takes me, it's a half hour of work over the weekend, but it's like, it reduces my stress and, makes the week go well. So
seemingly well worth it, right? Half an hour of invested time for a little peace of mind or stress release.
Yeah. And I think what it can help do is like, if I hadn't done that, I probably would have just unintentionally or without a lot of self-awareness chugged into my inbox, and I would have thought that like, oh, the stressful thing is I have all of these emails. I need to take care of those when really I have plenty of time to do it today. So it was able to head that off. How do you
insist upon a boundary for emails in particular? I think this is a pandemic, the email pandemic
of emails.
So how do you kind of create your filters or boundaries around that?
I don't know that maybe this is a good place to invite more intentionality into my life, Joe. A lot of the emails that I get, I'm able to delete. Okay. All right. So one thing I do about email actually is I don't have it on my phone. And that's a very good boundary, especially for someone in my profession. I don't know many people who don't have their email on their phone. And I took it off my phone because one night I was sitting in bed and I like checked my email. And then I just had this vision of being in my bed with like all of the people who were emailing me like in a line in my bedroom. And I was like, this is really inappropriate.
So it wasn't a positive fantasy.
No,
it
really wasn't. Okay. So maybe I have the wrong people emailing me. I don't know.
That's true.
It wasn't a positive fantasy. So I like, metaphorically like closed the bedroom door. I deleted the app and I feel a lot better. Like I don't need to be I'm not a neurosurgeon or there's no emergencies coming into my inbox. So I don't feel like the world's going to fall apart if I don't check my email. So I think that is one boundary that I feel really proud of. In the past, I have flirted in and out of like, what if I keep my email closed all the time and only check it in the evening? I see your face lighting up like, oh, go.
Yeah. Tell me more. This is intriguing. Good.
And that is something, I think I could probably move towards a like, check it in the afternoon and check it at the end of the day or maybe even like morning, midday, evening, and keep it closed otherwise. I'm good at keeping it closed when I'm writing because I need to be like in a flow state. And maybe I'm leaving it open the rest of the time because I'm work procrastinating like with email or something like that, but
I mean, it's always reliable to do that for us if we want it to.
Yeah, totally. Because you can feel like you're being productive when you're handling your emails, which is essentially what other people want you to do rather than, actually doing the stuff that you need to be doing.
Sure. How often have you heard people brag about how many emails they got through?
Oh,
it's a weird kind of bragging because they're proud, but not proud that they have over 100 emails, right? Mm-hmm. But it's a productivity thing. It's like, look how productive I was.
It's similar to the like, oh, I had to work all weekend thing, which I think I've really turned around on because now when I hear that, I'm like, oh, maybe you're not planning very well. Or like, I don't know.
It's like maybe you're not being very creative with what you could possibly be doing over the weekend.
Yeah.
I don't know. But it sounds like you would not choose to be working all weekend.
Oh my gosh, definitely not. Yeah. That dates back to early grad school days. There was a Saturday morning when I woke up I slept in until 9 o'clock and Brian, my now husband, then handsome roommate, wanted to like make pancakes and watch TV. And I woke up on Saturday. I was like, I'm already stressed out. I'm already behind. Like I was supposed to get up 2 hours ago and start work. It's like too late to do this. And he just looked at me like, have you lost it? Are you completely bananas? So I made myself this entitlement list to kind of like keep myself on track at the time. And I was like, hey, Earnshaw, you're entitled to not work all weekend. Like maybe my boundaries has almost always been like a little bit of Sunday afternoon work. You're entitled. What else did I have there? I was like, it was like some real basic stuff, but it was counter to the culture, I think, of like being a PhD student. So you're entitled to sleeping 8 hours a night. You're entitled to exercise. You're entitled to like order out 1 or 2 nights a week for dinner. Don't do it every night because that's not super healthy, Earnshaw. So like some of that stuff. And I put it above my computer so that when that balance started getting off, I tried to readjust. So I also really subscribe, just thinking about weekends, I really subscribe to the idea that, and some of the research that suggests that, vacations and time off really matter, especially for all kinds of work, but for me, for brain work, like if I work all weekend or I never take a vacation, I think the brain work that I do is worse. Like I'm less creative. I'm less excited. A lot of my work is writing. I'm less excited and ready to write. So I do really feel like I need time off to do my job better and more productively, maybe.
Yeah. So is that the weekend then for you?
Yeah, it's the weekend and it's evenings. So after we do our dog walk, I'm off. And then proper vacations and such as well.
Which means what?
Maybe like, so this summer, a week or 2 unplugged, no work, no email. Again, there's really not a lot of science emergencies that come up. I mean, there can be things, but if something does pop up with data collection, which could be a science emergency for us. And all of those people know how to reach me. I don't need to be like monitoring my email for them. So a proper vacation probably for me looks like, really trying to keep the laptop shut, or at least keep the work stuff on the laptop closed. Does that answer your question?
It certainly does. Is it oversimplified to call it technology?
Yeah, I'm not sure. I mean, I think that I certainly probably integrate technology, at least my phone, and like a Kindle and things like that, even when I'm on vacation or, over the weekend. Or I love podcasts, and that's a technologically, like mediated thing. And so I don't necessarily take a break from that, although I do appreciate that, that could be helpful for folks.
Well, I guess that's what I was looking for, right? Is kind of that simple takeaway. Is it as simple as unplugging from technology? Maybe,
yeah.
Right? For some, but maybe not. It doesn't, and it doesn't need to be, as long as you have your clear-ish set of rules or filters or boundaries that, gives you everything that you want. And I love the idea of the entitlement list too. Do you have a current up-to-date entitlement list? You don't have to read it.
I don't, but I did find, I think I have it in my office. I did find my old grad student entitlement list recently, and it's all like crinkled and stained with tea and
tears.
Yeah, and tears. I think by now I've internalized the entitlements. I think maybe at that time I needed the external reminder of the entitlements. And now I'm like, no, it's appropriate to take weekends off, and that's fine. So, yeah.
Yeah. Do you have a physical reminder or something because with work, it sounds like you have a lovely color-coded calendar. Mm-hmm. But as far as just personally, do you have a physical reminder?
Physical reminder of
when you are either veering from or you're on track with your entitlement list, your intentionality living.
Oh, okay. That's a good question. I'll tell you what comes to mind for me, but then I'd actually be really curious to hear from you what that looks like from other people, or because I'm not totally sure. So my other daily habit that has had an exponential payoff, because I did have 2 answers for this, is that I do a daily like gratitude journal in the morning. And you're also supposed to, in the evening, like reflect on your day, like what went well, what didn't well. The morning is sort of gratitude plus, because there's a prompt about what are you grateful for? And, there's all sorts of great research about gratitude and mental health benefits. And that's part of the reason why I started doing it. But then there's also a prompt about like, what can you do today to make your day great? And then there's an I am statement. And so when I like write that, and I also from time to time, like to just like be tool of expressive writing to like work through whatever it is that's going on. So, and this can be, even though it's very brief, a form of expressive writing. If I'm doing that activity, I mean, that is sort of a moment in time for me, maybe to be self-aware, to pay attention to sort of what's boiling up. Because often what will happen is when I like start to write, think about what can I do to make today great, I'll think back to yesterday and what did not go well about yesterday. And then I'll try to steer that boat a little bit differently for that day. So for me, I mean, maybe just that act of doing that daily check-in is a way for me to kind of see where I'm at in terms of a lot of this. But again, I'm really curious. I mean, what kind of things, how do you see that pop up for other people?
Well, I'd say the journaling is a fairly common one, because it doesn't really have to take that much time. And depending on the formula or specific journal that you're using, sometimes there's a structure already in place. So you don't have to, and it's a great structure to reflect upon and to have gratitude for. And the I statement is wonderful, right? The mantras. And that is a pretty common one. Certainly in the conversations I have many times with clients, they have at least a weekly reminder when they meet with me. And we reflect, however, like, how did it go? Right. If you hadn't given it more than 10 seconds thought, like, how did it go? And similar to you, we talk about what didn't go as well, or even what did go well. What do we want to adjust for next week? And move forward accordingly, right? Other things, people just have physical representations of their goals, of how they want to live their life, whether it's a habit, routine, or just lifestyle. And, I have Post-it notes that I put up. There's quite a few around here. Sometimes if I've had a Post-it long enough that it's been meaningful long enough that it starts to lose its stickiness, I put it up more permanently on a whiteboard. Okay. Or I even go as far as putting it, in a frame, for example. These are other things that I know people do as well. And even having accountability partners to remind them, hey, this is an important thing to me, so much so that I'm pulling in a resource to remind me of it. So those are, and tattoos, tattoos are great things. Like whatever you love, you put it right there in case you forget, I guess. I don't know. I don't have any tattoos.
Oh, that was going to be my next question.
Yeah.
I do the write stuff down on sticky notes. So that's really interesting. And because that is something I do, especially when there's like a quote, like I probably once a year will writ on a sticky note just as a reminder that competition is the thief of joy. And I will pop that up because in my field, it's super easy to look up everybody's stats. You can go over to Google Scholar and see how many papers that people have written, how many people have cited them, or you could pop over to NIH Reporter and look up people's like how many grants they have. And so whenever I find myself, noticing that, I give myself a little competition is the thief of joy, sticky note. So that's an interesting, I had never thought about that as like, oh, I'm giving myself a physical reminder or like way to keep myself on track. But that is certainly what it is.
What do you take from that other than I hate that idea, so I'm going to not do it? How do you twist it, take the grain of truth? What is true for you moving forward?
Could you ask that in a different way when you mean what is true about what?
Sure. So competition is the thief of joy.
Yeah. Okay.
Very powerful statement, right? So much so you're like, ugh, I don't want to. But what is true for you? What do you take moving to compel you forward? Okay. To motivate you.
Love that. Yeah. Okay. So I don't think that I usually reflect on the competition thing and then try to morph that into the good things. This is fun to do. But if I were being more thoughtful about it, I really believe that like science is a team sport and that it's through cooperation that we get where we need to go, both like in our individual research studies and also just as a field. Like I actually take great comfort in the idea that I am not the only like HIV or substance use disorder stigma researcher, because there's so much work to do. Like these are really pronounced and big problems. And so if I was the only person working on it, that would be terrible because we wouldn't make a lot of progress, right? And so maybe the thing, that feels true or the thing to be looked toward or appreciated in those moments is the more badass scientists with lots of publications and lots of grants, like the better, because it means that more people are like in this playground and I'm not alone and I can do work with them and I cannot do work with them also. And they're going to do great things and try to solve this big problem that we're all trying to solve. I mean, I think the best thing for my career could probably be if I would be like, if I had to switch what I was doing because this problem was solved. You know what I mean? Like there just was no more stigma tomorrow. I think that'd be awesome. I could like go study something else. I mean, that will not happen in the course of my career.
Well, that's an interesting concept though.
Yeah. Put yourself out of work.
That you'll become redundant, right? If all goes well.
Right.
Yeah. Well, I don't know, Val, I heard at least 6 or 7 different Post-its worth of quotes out of what you just said. Yeah.
Okay.
So when we play this back or listen back, we can get out our Post-it notes.
Awesome.
Which, if I'm not mistaken, a few months back, I had run out of Post-its.
And I don't think we had any.
And I think it was...
Oh, we did? Oh, Brian did.
No, you did. You had like 8 of them left, and I used every bit of them. And I was eternally grateful. Thank you.
Did you use them to write down like notes to yourself? Like,
I'd like to think so. I can't swear with any certainty, but
it better not have been like toast and.
No, I can't. No, I can't claim that I did for sure, but it was probably something inspirational though. So what in your life feels just about perfect?
So I'm not sure that this is where this question is going, but the thing in my life is, well, I guess it's really at the time of my life that feels just about perfect is somewhere between 8 and 9 p.m. after dinner, after Katniss, the dog, has had her treat. She's no longer being a treat terrorist. And it's a human dog pile up on the couch, watching a show, totally unplugged from like, work and other stuff and just hanging out. That moment in time to me, I do feel like perfection. Like I feel really happy and all of that. So yeah, just about every day, every day that we have this like human dog pile up and we're just hanging out, watching Netflix. It's really some basic stuff, but I feel really happy. And in that moment, what's not to like and feel really grateful for when you got somebody you love, a dog who thinks you're awesome, and, you're not staying up late doing work, you're in a home. I mean, yeah, so I feel some degree of perfection in that moment.
That is a remarkable answer. I think that's great. And the fact that it's so sustainable, and you're able to replicate it on a daily basis.
All you need is Netflix and a couch.
Yeah, again, not an official sponsor, but we also appreciate Netflix in this house.
This question, though, makes me think about, and this is not my area, about the idea of satisficers versus maximizers, I think. And I made Brian take this personality quiz last night, and I took it because I was thinking about your question. And satisficers are people who like make decisions maybe, and however that decision goes, it's great. And they're kind of like happy with where they're at. And maximizers are people who are maybe trying to think about ways to make things better. like one example that I heard Adam Grant talk about, he's an industrial organizational psychologist, is like a Satisficer is going to turn on the radio and hear a song that they like and like stick to it. Whereas a maximizer is going to turn the radio on and then hear a song that they like and be like, oh no, maybe there's a better song. And they're going to change stations and try to see if there's something like better out there. So I think that I'm like a Satisficer. And that is also what this personality quiz told me. I will put the caveat out there though, that I create, psychological tests and scales. And so I'm really bad at taking them because I usually decide like, oh, this is the answer that I think that I am. And then I answer consistently. But
Sure. This is the result. Yeah.
Yeah. I still very much think that I am like, I lean towards being a Satisficer. I think as someone who identifies in that way or think, I think I see like, so perfection 8 to 9 p.m., but I also feel really good. Like when I'm writing, I look for places in my life, I think to like find those feelings. Whereas Brian took the quiz and so I was like 15 or 14% maximizer, which means, mostly Satisficer. And Brian took the quiz and he was like 65% maximizer. And I don't know. I was surprised. My first question to him was like, shouldn't you have dated more? Like we got together really early. And he looked at me and he said, oh, I dated enough. I dated a lot or something. I was like, oh God.
Jeez.
But anyway, your question, and when I've heard other people on your podcast respond to this question, it makes me think about, who's a maximizer and is like, nothing's perfect, or, there's no perfection reached. I need to keep moving and shaking for that versus, the people who are like, oh, here's 15 ways that my life is perfect. And I feel like, I wonder if those people could be living the same lives, but, if some of this personality thing is at play. But anyway, I'm kind of new to this construct of Satisficer and maximizer. And that's been a fun one to like think about and play with recently.
Yeah. It's almost like the cross between the continual improvement and the satisfaction, right? Like where's that crossover? That seems like an ideal mix, maybe.
Yeah.
Unless I guess you're truly a maximizer or a satisficer, and then you're good with whatever you are. I don't know.
Right. So maybe Brian being like 60 some percent, which is pretty much, maybe he's the ideal mix because
that's his, maybe. Yeah.
Got to have a little bit of both.
Would you want to be more of a maximizer?
So here's the funny thing about it is I feel like, I could say that I'm a Satisficer and you could be mistaken and feel like I'm not ambitious. And that is not the case. So I am, especially in my career, trying to think about ways to like level up in different ways or do better science. I am, always, or even, in my personal life, also very slowly running or like doing yoga. I do look for ways to improve or to learn new things in different aspects of my life. But I don't like feel badly about it if I'm not always successful. I'll try to improve the distance, that I can run or something, and it'll be going terribly. And I'll just be like, maybe I think I'll probably get there. I'll keep trying. And I try to be happy with that day's run, even if it wasn't, what I hoped it was at the beginning.
Right.
Does that answer your question?
It does. It sounds like you don't have to be void of motivation and, lacking goals in order to be at least in
the way that I'm manipulating the construct that I have not well researched. That is how I'm thinking about it.
Well, I think that's also maybe my point too, is whose opinion matters on the subject.
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a good point.
Between each individual taking the assessment and the people who wrote the assessment, perhaps.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
Right. Well, that also sounds just about perfect as far as a response.
Yeah, there we go.
Yeah. Who is someone you admire, and what do you admire about them?
So I admire very much my mom. I was telling Melanie about this on one of our dog walks that I had been recently thinking about at my age, my mom was like a single mom of 3 kids, all under 10, or maybe I was 11. I really admire that she really gave us like a super full childhood, nonetheless. So the thing in particular that I was thinking about and admiring her for was, because you guys are going on this like RV adventure, was that we had a pop-up trailer. So you have to hook these things up to your car and then you go like drive around. So my mom was about my age, 3 kids, one's 11, the others, are younger than 10, who is like hooking up her car to this pop-up trailer, like driving long distances, like throwing this thing up so that her kids and her can like have these like camping adventures. There's like no way I would do that. Like I don't have 3 kids who are, 10 and under, but that like the whole thing sounds like really stressful and really hard. I mean, maybe I would do it if I was like, if we traded places, like who knows? It's hard to know what you would do in a different life circumstance. But I just, like now when I think about it, I'm like, wow, that's impressive. Also, she signed us up for, or she didn't, we wanted to sign up for like sports, and I was in the marching band, and I was on a canoe team, and my sister did cheerleading, and we did all these things that would be really hard for like 2 parents to juggle and drive around your kids to. And there are like 3 of us and 1 of her. And I think, I really admire that. Like the older I get, and when I realize that I am now at the stage where she was, I really admire it. So just that maybe like the hardworking aspects of it, both she's really hardworking at her job, but also really hardworking in her personal life to give others like the best, So yeah, I'm gonna come down strong with a mom answer.
Yeah, that's a good mom answer. That's a good specific mom answer too. Not just some general momdom, but it sounds.
Yeah, no, specifically pop-up trailers. Yeah.
That's a great response. Yeah. It has me wondering what aspects of her are in you that you see today. Maybe the pop-up aspects, if you see those.
What aspects? Well, so if we skip to what do we imagine other people admire about you? Is this going to be your first podcast where you essentially have the person interview themselves half the time?
I think this is the new format. I'm liking it a lot.
So as the same professional development program, I had to email a few people and ask them what they thought my greatest gifts were, which is like an incredibly awkward thing to do, but really lovely and generous of the other people to email you back. So my brother emailed me back, and there were like a couple questions. One of them is, what makes me unique? And my brother, and I pulled this email because, I wanted to be prepared for today's interview. But as you asked, what quality of my mom do I have? I'm realizing that his response about what makes me unique is my mom. This like response is reminiscent of my mom. So he said, you do a really good job of balancing what you believe to be the right thing to do. And that is like all my mom. Like my mom has like a very, this is right and this is wrong, like sense to her. And then my brother says, you have a very good approach of looking to include things that are healthy for you physically and mentally. But when there are important things for people you love or causes you believe in, you're willing to put yourself aside. And then Steve says, I don't think that's remotely common. I think it is common because I don't think I'm super special in that way. But this part about my brother, saying that when there are important things like people or causes or something that's like, okay, I need to put this other thing first for now. That's like my mom. That's inherited from my mom.
And it's something it sounds like that you might be proud of.
Yeah, I think that's nice. Yeah, I think I could be proud of that. I think both things I can be proud of. I think the fact that he points out that like, not only are you clocking what's healthy for you, physically, mentally, professionally, whatever, and you're prioritizing that, but you've got some give there for other people from time to time. So it's not like, this compliment doesn't make me, or this this response that he had doesn't leave me feeling like I'm a martyr, which I think is also important in my life, that I'm, it leaves me feeling like I'm a balanced human.
A little humility there.
Yeah.
Right.
Oh.
No, I think that's a great mix. I think that's a great blend.
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
So I'm now wondering what's next intentionally for you moving forward. After this, of course, very insightful conversation that we've had. What is?
Well, maybe, maybe my next intentional move is to shut my email and go back to my, morning, noon, and evening email check.
Well, you did talk about the idea of batching, right?
Oh, what's that?
Which is to have certain periods. Oh, it's essentially what you were explaining earlier, which is just having specific moments in your day, chunks of time, and tending to your emails in those moments and restricting it to those moments. So essentially creating boundaries around your email, which is something that most of us don't do. And I've been aware of batching for a long time. I still am not very good at it. I generally batch, which, I tend not to look at it in bed because now I have the way that you view it. I'm like, there's no way that I'm ever going to look at email in bed again. So
no, it's like a really good way to end it. Yeah. Yeah. So I'm going to move forward with batching. I love to have a name to it, a good evidence-based practice maybe. So yeah, I think that's a good one for me to keep striving, because I really do, email is, for the most part, it's other people asking us to do things. So.
Yeah, that's interesting. Because I don't know that I would say the same. Well, I don't know. Gosh, now you have me thinking about this whole thing.
Well, I can say that in part because the people that I am asking to do things, like I have a really lovely, amazing group of undergraduate research assistants, and they are doing things and getting back to me, but they're on Slack. So they're like they're not going to be emailing me with the stuff that I've asked for. So for me, my email inbox is like every day I get multiple requests to review journal articles, or right now I've got in my email inbox things that I have not responded to. Request to review journal articles. I have a request in there to co-author a paper from someone I've never met. I have to decide, do I say yes or no to that? I've got a couple requests to be on kind of advisory committees for projects. I've got somebody who wants to just interview me. They're a student and they want to talk about an area of research that's not really my area of research. So it really, you have this other question about what do you say no to? And my whole email inbox is it's really a practice of no ands, or no buts. No, I can't. Oh yeah, no buts. No, I can't do this, but here's something that might be helpful for you. So if I want to be gracious, I could just say no, that's also fine. And sometimes most of the journal requests, I'm going to say no. And if there is someone I can suggest it for, I'll include that. But, for someone who's a student who's starting out in this area, I'm not the best person for them to talk to. I do if it's just 2 extra minutes for me to think of someone to direct them towards, then I will try to do that. Yeah. I'm
glad you brought it back to that, because I want to know, what is it okay to say no to? Just a straight no, not a no and, or no, not even a no but. When is it okay just to say no?
All of these journal requests. And so those I do have a firm boundary around, because I am on, so big picture, for any scientific finding, those are usually written up as a paper, and then they're sent out to a journal, and then that journal sends it to other scientists, and they have to read it and say, okay, yeah, the methods were good, the conclusions that they're drawing are good, this article makes sense, or else they say, oh wait, red flags, they're making this conclusion, but that's inappropriate. And that's kind of our scientific vetting system, and it's important to be a part of that, both because it's good for science overall, and also because, other people vet my work. So just as a writing of the universe, it's important to do at least as much for others as you're asking people to do. So for me, I think it's important to keep that pretty level. But I get 2 to 3 requests a day from journals, and some of those are kind of like fake journals, but most of them are real, are real journals and are real.
Do you want to out any of them right now?
No, no one would know what they are. But they'll be like,
well, actually, if you mention them, they would. So maybe you don't want to be.
But they'll be like Joe's journal of like HIV research and plants. You can just tell that like this HIV and plant research journal is probably like not a thing. So I have now like strict rules, so that I have strict rules around like if I'm on the editorial board, I say yes to most of those unless it's like really outside my area. And then I mostly say no to the others. And so that, because I go into those types of emails with that boundary already set, then I know like what the answer is going to be. But for most of these others, they're often like random requests. And maybe I need to think of a more flexible like rule to approach. But usually I need to like think about it to like get myself to the no, I guess.
Yeah. Well, it sounds like to me that this extends beyond email. Email is just maybe the delivery method for you choosing what you commit to. Sounds like you value your time and your commitments.
Yes. Mm-hmm.
And so if you're going to commit to something, then you better value it, it sounds like.
The thing I've been thinking about a lot lately is if you say yes to something, or if I say yes to something, I can't roll in with my B game. No one's ever going to be like, hey, will you serve on this committee or will you co-author this paper? And like, they don't care that I only have an hour to do it or that I'm strapped for time. Like if I say yes to it and I can't give you my A game, that's not what they were asking. So that has also been helpful for me as I think about these asks of like, not only can I do this, but I know you're going to want my A game. Can I really actually give you my A game? And usually that's no.
Well, that is cool. And I'm going to jump on that opportunity to close out this conversation because I appreciate you saying yes to it. And I appreciate you bringing your A game to this conversation.
Thank you. Because I said, yeah, exactly. So yes, got to bring it.
Yeah, you did. Yes, well, thank you. You did. And I hope I choose to think this is not the exception, in that you are just instituting this rule with me as well. But thank you for your sincere consideration of all these questions and your time and careful thought. And I look forward to other deep, meaningful, and also shallow conversations in the future.
Yeah, well, I'll see you on the walkabout with the dogs.
You likely will. Yeah, probably even later today.
Sounds good. All right. Thanks, Joe.
Thank you.
This has been Intentionally Ever After, hosted by intentional lifestyle coach Joe Bukartek. If you would like to have your own intentional conversation with Joe on or off the air, visit intentionallyeverafter.com. Thanks for listening.